I want to shift focus a little bit and talk about the West Asian region. Now, we have seen the very historic Abrahamic Accords last year. Of course, several Arab countries had relations with Israel even before, but this was out in the open now, and there was an acknowledgement of it. There was establishment of diplomatic ties, which is in many ways significant. So, how do you see the changes that have happened in West Asia? And we've spoken about how Biden's, ascent to the president's office might change some of those things. So how do you see the dynamics playing out in this region, and where does it leave each of the different players, be it Iran, Turkey, and of course even India? If there are any implications for India as well.
So the thing here is, where did this whole thing about Iran start? When did Iran become enemy number one? And that happens with Khomeini's so-called Islamic revolution, right? He didn't want it to be a sort of Shia revolution, so he called it Islamic revolution. And then he started encouraging revolutions all across the region. And that was something none of these other countries were willing to tolerate, because it was essentially a Shia power grab in the name of an Islamic. It was a Shia revolution disguised as an Islamic revolution. It, it saw its fruition both in Iraq after that misguided invasion of Iraq, but much earlier in Lebanon, where even though, as per their denominational system, the Sunnis and the Christians really controlled power, and the Shias got shafted, even though they're possibly in an absolute majority in Lebanon. Today, Hezbollah de facto controls Lebanon. Between Hezbollah and Aman, the two Shia parties, they effectively control Lebanon. There is nothing you can do without Shia approval or Iran's approval, technically, in Lebanon anymore. So, and that this also applies to large parts of Iraq, by the way. So what you see is what Trump pulled off, and I think this is why the policy community hates Trump so much, is that in much the same way that Arnab Goswami has proven that journalists are incidental to running a news channel, Trump has proven that policy experts are completely incidental to running a global peace or global politics.
Right.
Because every single expert, if you had asked them 4 years back, there is John Kerry on record saying this: forget about a peace between the Arab states and Israel that does not include the Palestinians.
Right.
And what has Trump done? He has bypassed the Palestinians, not on one or two, but how many? Morocco, Sudan that was housing Osama bin Laden, mind you, that got struck for housing Osama bin Laden. So Morocco, Sudan, Bahrain, UAE, effectively Saudi Arabia as well. The Saudis will never do it openly, but we all know the Saudis are the glue that's holding the whole thing together. And you're going to see another 3-4 more Arab states also join this thing. So what you're seeing here is a sort of realignment where we are being told again and again, the Shia threat has now grown beyond tolerance. We are not going to accept a nuclear Iran, full stop. I don't think Biden gets it. Now, the problem with this is I've seen a lot of intellectual chicanery about this. I've challenged a lot of these so-called experts on why is it that if Iran is so committed to peace, to not going nuclear, why is it that it is continuing its long-range ballistic missile program? Now, anybody who's worked in arms control can tell you long-range ballistic missiles are highly, highly inaccurate.
Right.
They need a nuclear warhead in order for them to be useful. Right? Conventionally, I mean, if you're a first world country, you can probably master the technique of pinpoint precision at 12,000 kilometers with a re-entry speed of Mach 30 to 40 times the speed of sound. But Iran is not one of those countries. So it is fundamentally going to be an inaccurate ballistic missile. Why do they need that? And the standard answer is, oh, we're looking into it. If you actually go through my timeline on Twitter, you will see there are a lot of people who have replied saying we're looking into it. And 4 years down the line, I'm still waiting for the fact, have they looked into it? They have not. Well, they do, but they're just being intellectually dishonest.
Right.
So what you're seeing now is the Sunni bloc very clearly coming together. They are excluding the Turks from the equation. Because remember, their hatred for Iran is only matched by their hatred for Turkey. And it needn't have been that way for Turkey. Turkey could have very much been part and parcel of this entire package, except for Erdogan being too smart by half. Think of Erdogan as Xi Jinping in fast forward. Xi Jinping is Erdogan in slow motion. Erdogan is Xi Jinping in fast motion. They're very similar that way. So Erdogan is one of those people. If you remember when Erdogan came to power first, everybody was praising his sort of zero enemies, zero friction policy, it was called. And what a joke that turned out to be, because there is not one person, not one country around him that doesn't hate his guts. Yesterday, there was news that Greece and Israel are now setting up a joint fighter training academy. They're going to pool their fleet of fighters and they're going to be training, which means because Israel's a small country, so most of its training happens over the Mediterranean. They're going to be simulating long-range runs over Cyprus all the way up to Greece. Right. And that is sort of your nightmare come true for Turkey. Turkey has been trying to use Libyan terrorists to assert its gas claims, even though it has none. Neither Libya nor Turkey have gas claims to where Greece, Cyprus, Israel have them because of the way nautical conventions work. They're not listening to that either. The French nearly sent their fleet against the Turks. The Egyptians have bombed Turkish positions in Libya. The whole of the Arab Peninsula today, without exception, except Qatar, and now that Qatar has kind of kowtowed and bowed down to the Saudis in a sense, the one bankroller of their eccentricity that they had has also abandoned them. Mahathir Mohamad, poor chap, is out of power. It's not going well for these guys. So that's the dynamic. Now to take this forward, where do I see this? The price for Erdogan the price of readmission for Erdogan is going to be so high that he's not going to be able to afford it. He may have been able to afford it at one point of time, but he has no cards left to play. And he's also done the grave mistake of alienating Russia on, even though Russia is, because thanks to Putin's clumsiness, he has very few cards on the table. They jointly attacked a treaty ally of Russia, and Russia did nothing. So everybody around Russia today is laughing at Russia as an impotent eunuch because they couldn't come protect Armenia, right? So even that one friend that he had, he was playing a high stakes game trying to alienate them. Right. It shows you how crazy the man actually is, right? So we've got this combination of things. Turkey is, I think we've seen the end of the zenith of Turkey. From now on, it's only down, down, down for Turkey. For Iran, their hope will lie in the possibility of Biden signing a deal. The issue is that with Israeli diplomatic skills and Saudi money and the UAE's charm in DC, they will be able to run rings around Biden in scuttling any policy he has. It didn't work that much with Obama because even though the Saudis and the Israelis were on the same thing, they weren't really coordinating with each other. Now it is blatant open coordination. They're not even shy about it. You have UAE newspapers and Israeli newspapers they're literally anchors, TV anchors are having long distance love affairs. UAE anchors and Israeli anchors are having love affairs. They've gone from being at a state of war to in 2 months being each other's closest allies. This is like wo sagai shadi with India and America. We haven't even gotten married yet. After 30 years after the end of the Cold War, we're still going on dates. We haven't even gotten engaged yet. With Israel and the Arab countries, what has happened now is they have gone from being bitter enemies to forget engagement and marriage. They've already produced kids and grandkids now. They're waiting for the great grandchildren to be born, right? So it's actually quite funny. I think we're finally seeing a Middle Eastern power bloc that has the ability and the strength to be in DC and say, you know what, we're not going to let this deal go through. And when they failed under Obama, they'll actually succeed now. So I would be very, very surprised if Biden got a deal through unless the terms are so harsh on Iran. I don't think Iran will suck it up, but let's see.
Namaste. We hope you enjoyed this Chitti Media content. Please remember to subscribe to us and switch on the notifications for this channel. For our other social media links, more content, and to support our work, please visit citti.net. Dhanyavad. Namaskar.